Here we are again.
Yeah, well, hopefully we have a new movie for you that you might not have seen, and it's another true story. So hopefully this is going to be exciting for everybody. We're really looking forward to sharing it with you. You found it, Nana, didn't
Mhm.
you? How long ago? Couple of weeks ago.
Yeah, yeah, I think.
Yeah. And then she said, "Oh, I think we should watch this movie. It's a really good one." Um, and the story is pretty intense. What the character goes through. It's there's some scenes in World War II, and yeah, he goes through a lot. He gets tortured by the Japanese. He gets caught. His plane gets blown up in the water, and
Pacific Ocean.
he's in the water for 47 days. He manages to survive that, and then he gets captured by the Germans. I'm not Germans, the Japanese, and then he's tortured and he survives the whole thing and he comes back, but he drinks to cope with that situation, and he pretends that nothing happened. He doesn't want to share about the experience. The film's called Unbroken: Path to Redemption, and so there's two movies. We're going to watch the second one, but the first movie is about um really him being unbroken and seeing, oh wow, he survived all those things and he never broke. Yeah, basically. But then this movie is more about forgiveness and what he has to go through. So really, he has a major identity issue happening, and he enjoys this fantasy of hatred, of terror. Um, And so, really, what he's really doing is he's really, really facing his own mind as we are. We're really facing our own fantasies. And I think this is what this movie really shows. If we look at it, that we tell ourselves stories about ourselves, and we believe these stories to be true, and these stories are not true, and we create a self identity out of something that is completely and utterly an illusion. And maybe you've been telling this story all the time about the self concept that you are since time began, really. And then you still continue to tell the story, even though it's completely over. And so Jesus is really bringing us inside and saying, you've really got to look at this fantasy of yourself because it has nothing to do with who you are. And so this is how trauma comes about, doesn't it? An experience seemingly happens, and then you continue to carry that story with you, and you literally traumatize yourself over and over and over again. And some never escape that. That's the human condition. They actually don't release themselves for it. You don't see that it's actually not you. Um, the ego sort of latches onto it and says, "This is you." And then you repeat this story. You might go to therapy, try all sorts of different things. But yeah, in the background, there's that feeling that something really happened to the character of who you are, and then that has made you who you are. So it's a huge sort of identity with an illusion of yourself. And so that's very challenging when seemingly we order illusions and we think, well, being tortured is one of the most challenging illusions you can possibly deal with, but it's still not true. And then the same, well, in actual fact, believing that you're good as a person is a really challenging illusion. Yeah, it's no different than the tortured illusion. Um, and you go around and say, "Well, I'm now a good person," and you say, "I do all of these good things," and you wear that on your chest now, and you tell everybody how good you are. And Jesus says, yeah, that's actually still an illusion too. It doesn't matter whether you have you're the tortured soul or you're the good soul in this world. It's still part of the illusion that has to be undone. And including the belief that something can be done to you outside. That's mainly what most traumas are, is there was something outside of me that came in and did something to this body identity, and now I'm traumatized by it because I can't let it go. That's really what we call trauma, including, suicide, for example. There's something in the background that's happened to you or that you've done that you're ashamed of or whatever, and you can't cope with it, and therefore you choose to kill yourself because of a fantasy of an illusion of yourself. So yeah, this is a really sort of this is great because he goes through a tremendous amount. That's why we're telling you now. He goes through a tremendous amount, and then he comes back, and to be able to cope with it, he starts to drink. And first of all, that's not so bad. But then he starts hallucinating and seeing the characters that tortured him. And in particular, one Japanese guard was very what's the word?
Evil.
Evil. Yeah. 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 So he really saw him as evil. Everybody was really, really frightened to him, frightened of this one, and they called him the bird. And it's like when he looked at you with complete evil eyes, and yeah, he beat them all and tortured them. And so, of course, really, the evil is only in your own mind. It's not outside. It's not outside of you. Nothing is it. No one's ever doing anything to you. This is actually a good response to this, and Jesus says this in so many ways, which is incredible, which is obviously the deepest teaching, really, is that you're doing it to yourself, that no one can do that to you because actually there is no other, and you're making it up. And I found another quote in how he says this. Every response you make to everything you perceive is up to you because your mind determines your perception of it. So this is his dream of evil, for example, in his own mind. And he obviously doesn't realize that the evil thoughts are coming from him, projected outward. And now there's seemingly evil coming back. And the only way to take it back is to see that evil does not actually exist. That's true forgiveness. So I thought actually our prayer, that what I just read from, is from chapter 10, which is the idols of sickness. And this is from the introduction. And I thought this could be really interesting for us as we watch it. So I recommend just really, really seeing, okay, what do I really believe here? Yeah, allow all the emotions just to be exactly as they are. You don't have to try and be spiritual over it or anything like that. Just allow everything to come exactly as it is. And when you're touched by something, that's great because you believe in that. Yeah. And what we're learning is, okay, I believe in it, but it doesn't mean to say it's the truth. So, okay, I believe in it, I'm experiencing something, and I can allow myself to feel that and to see it, and actually go to the point with Jesus where he shows you actually it's not true. So, I just found this just before we started. I thought it's really simple. It's a really simple, really. This is like the dreamer, the dream experience, really. And he's given us a question. Can anything exceed the love of God? That's our question to ourselves. Can anything exceed the love of God? That's what he's asking us. So that's the highest in it. Can anything exceed the love of God? And anything else is completely and utterly made up. That is absolutely fantastical. So yeah, this feels incredible. And what we loved about this movie and why Nana chose it, because it goes to true forgiveness, to see actually that nothing ever happened, and that you can forgive the seeming dream figures and say thank you. In actual fact, it actually helped him. So we cannot really, that's why we cannot judge the dream. So you can look at that. We can look at that through the movie. That will be fun as well. When you say, oh, something good is now happening to him. And then you say, oh, no, something bad is happening to him. Yeah. And Jesus says, don't judge. We cannot judge. We cannot judge the form. We cannot judge what is good, what is bad. We do not know what anything is for. And as we know for ourselves, I thought that was good. I thought this was good for me. And it turned out it was bad for me. And then we say, I thought this was going to be bad for me. Oh my God, it turned out it was a blessing. And in actual fact, for probably most of us, those challenging situations in our life that we've had, we say, wow, thank God that happened, because that propelled me into my desire for God. I'm actually really, really grateful for that experience. And so, actual fact, this is what's happening. And so, the interesting thing about this movie, why we loved it so much, is he has no thoughts of God. He's very angry at God actually, and he's like, well, if God was real, then he would have come and rescued me, wouldn't he? And why would I have gone through all this? He's not praying, he's not spiritual at all. Yeah, he's completely off the charts. He's not interested in any of those things. And does God really care about that? Yeah, does God care if we're praying at the end of our beds and we try and do all these good things? Not really. He knows the desire of our heart. It makes absolutely no difference. He can connect with anyone. Whatever you seemingly do in form, you're the most devoted one, and nothing happens. And yet this guy is in a terrible scenario. God comes, but God will come if that is the true desire of the heart to really remember. And so, seemingly in his thought system, that is not even on the table. He's not even thinking in that way. In fact, he's completely pushing away. He's completely saying the denial of God, and I'm going to drink and I'm going to do all these things, and he becomes nasty himself. He becomes a very difficult character to be around because he has to drink so much to be able to cope with the hallucinations and everything. And so what I love about this movie is it really makes no difference what we do in the form that God will come. Everybody is like God loves everyone, and God doesn't see any of these things.
Mm.
And so that's the beautiful thing about us all, because our story probably definitely isn't as torturous as this, but yet we all hold on to our fantasy of ourselves and we say, well, one day I will redeem myself from all the terrible things that I've done that I don't want to tell anybody about, but I know. And then hopefully, if I'm good enough, then maybe God will actually even love me as well. Maybe even I might be even lovable for God. And God laughs at that fantasy and says, well, you're already loved. This is another game that you keep playing. And God doesn't see anything that you've ever done. God doesn't see people. God doesn't understand that concept at all. So he just knows you as pure love. Yeah. And he hears these, they hear these calls of how terrible I am. And they all just laugh in heaven. It's like it's a comedy really for them. They really enjoy this comedy. Yeah. of the wars and everything like that, and they're sitting up there absolutely laughing their heads off, thinking that this is real. Where they think, "Oh my God, they believe this to be real," and it's such a joke, yeah. And this movie actually reminded me of an experience that Paramahansa Yogananda had. And I think this was actually in World War One, when World War One happened. And I think the war was over, and he'd read about it in the papers and all the terrible things that were going on. And he was really touched by it, like, wow, how can we be doing this? This is awful, yeah. And then the cinema sort of took off, and he went to the cinema, and one of the movies was a reenactment of the war, yeah. And he's sitting there and he's watching the movie play out of a reenactment of part of the war, and he's sitting there and he's, oh wow, this is so awful. How can we be doing this to one another? And all of this pain just came up of the devastation, yeah. And then he had, like, you could maybe call it a revelation, whereby God sort of gave him the interpretation and said, look, you're in a cinema, there's a screen, and these are characters, and it's not real, yeah. It's not actually happening. It's all seemingly in the projector. Yeah. And you go back into the projector, there's actually nothing there. There's only light that is actually truly projecting out, is light. But the things that are moving on the screen are completely and utterly made up. You're literally dreaming this. And then the voice said, and including the war that you believe to be real is a fantasy as well. And in that moment, he had that experience of that he was literally dreaming all these experiences as he was in the cinema, because it truly wasn't actually happening. It was just on a screen. And he was like, wow, he removed himself, and he then just observed the scene playing out just the same as any scene, as if it was a good scene or whatever, and said, no, God said they're nothing. You're the dreamer of the dream, and this cannot touch you, cannot change who you are. And so he had that experience. And so maybe today we can have that experience too. So I think if you feel anything with this, because the scenes aren't really, really graphic, they don't really, really go into that, but we can just allow ourselves to feel whatever comes through, and really see what we believe, and then we can just start to remove ourselves more away from that, and say, please show me that this is a fantasy. I really need to see that. We want a real experience of that, don't we, in our heart and in our mind, to see that we are absolutely observing it and it cannot touch us. So yeah, that's
Yeah.
that.
Yeah, that's beautiful, because I think today this session is like opportunity to really, really open ourselves up to the power of forgiveness, because this is not a casual moment. This is not the next thing you are doing during your day. This is it, as every moment is. This is it. This is it, when the transformation and the healing can happen and you can accept it. So I want to really emphasize it, because the ego always shuts us down to this moment, and it always goes to the future, or what I'm gonna do, all the to-dos that I have next, all the functions that I have next. After this movie, I'm gonna do or this or that. But no, this is the moment, and you are here for forgiveness. And this is a beautiful thing about us coming together. It's not actually bodies coming together that is special, but the purpose that we have in our mind and the desire. Otherwise, you would not be watching this, and you would not be here, and we would not be having this conversation if you didn't really want this. So you want it. So I just want to encourage you to just open your mind that this is the moment. And I think this movie is a beautiful demonstration of whatever it is you went through in the past, whatever it is that is haunting you, even something about your personality, something that happened in your family, all of this kind of trauma, childhood trauma, whatever it is, this is the opportunity to accept the miracle that the character is accepting the correction, really, because this movie is not about what intensity he is going through. It's really about where he is led, this moment of total transformation of his mind. And the way I found the first movie, which was released in 2013, I think, I watched that. I found that movie first, and I watched some interviews. And that movie is directed by Angelina Jolie, and she was talking about this character, this man, Louis Zamparini, which some of you may know because he's a hero in America. And she was talking about this man, and apparently they were friends. And she was saying, I have never met a person who was carrying more joy than he. Like, he was always joyous, always happy. He had always some kind of wisdom to extend. And that got my attention. I was like, always enjoy? What is that? Like, there must be something, some kind of forgiveness behind it. How can it be that man receives this kind of reflection? So I went into it and I found this movie and the whole story. And I think that's what really drew me into it. And then I watched it, and just before I watched that movie, I was going through some things, let's call it ego backlash. And when I watched it, I was like, oh my God, it's not really about what he's going through and why it's justified for him to go through the intensity and darkness. Oh, this happened to him, so this is why he's going through the intensity. But intensity is the ego itself. And when I watched the movie, I was like, oh my God, this is my ego playing out. This is what was literally happening to me several days ago. So in that sense, it's not really about the story of what happened to him, but the ego, craziness of the ego, and recognizing what we are allowing in our mind to happen. And the moment of where he is led to is where we are also led. And my mind just went blank. And let's see. And I wanted to actually share some of the things like a background, because this movie begins with some of the really, really fast information about him. And then this movie starts with him coming from Japan, from the concentration camp back to America, basically. And everyone, his family thinks that, oh, he's just going to continue living the way he lived before. So that's where the movie continues. So it doesn't really deal like with the war directly or with him being in the camp, but it's just him reliving those moments again and again and again, and holding on to this idea. And actually, when you will see that everything that he's going through, for him, it's always about God and what he believes about God. So the whole movie is dealing with his belief about God, that God is so, like, God is punishing him. God is asking him to sacrifice. All these deep-seated, seemingly dark beliefs, all of this is up for him. And he's always dealing with this belief about God. And that's what we are called to transform today, and to look at and to let it go. So even when he was a child, he was actually quite and mischievous, let's say. When he was 5, he started smoking. When he was 8, he started drinking. So he was like a troublemaker. He would get into trouble. He would, with teachers, with cops, with anything really. He was a troublemaker. And then he has a brother whose name is Peter. And I feel like this morning I was thinking about their relationship, and actually I feel some kind of emotion with it, because his brother became like a guardian for him, like a guardian angel who always tried and tries to care for him. So he was this troublemaker. So his brother enrolls him into this running competition, which he does not actually feel like he wants to go into it, but he enrolls and he does it. He does the competition and he comes third, and all of a sudden he finds out, oh my God, I can direct all this mind energy that I'm using inappropriately, let's say. I can direct it towards this, and I can I can use all this energy to run. And then it feels so good for him. It feels so natural for him. When he runs, his mind is just quiet. Nothing is happening. So in a way, that was his connection with God and with quietness and stillness. And then he actually sets record, like national high school record. And then he goes to Olympics when he's 19, and he's the youngest one who to be accepted for Olympics. And then these Olympics were held in 1936 in Berlin in summer, and he comes eighth, but he does the last lap. He does it so fast that he gets attention of Adolf Hitler, and he was like, "I want to meet this guy." And they actually meet, and they they shake hands, and the Olympics end. And in September, war starts, and Louis goes to war. He enrolls in Air Force. He becomes what is his role?
Fighter pilot, isn't he?
Yeah, something like that. So you can see how his life unfolds, and it's like trouble, as Ken was saying, troublemaker, seemingly not like a nice guy or whatever. And his life, when you look at the whole life, whole picture of his life, is just unbelievable. And he goes to war, and he's a I don't know what you said. He's on a plane basically, and then their plane is shot by Japan, and it falls into Pacific Ocean, and they are on this boat, and they are there for 47 days, and sometimes Japanese airplanes come and shoot them, and they have to jump in the water, but in the water there are sharks, so they have to manage to get out really, really fast on the boat again, and then the airplane comes again. So he goes through this for 47 days, and that's why the first part of the movie is unbroken, because he does not allow the circumstances to break him and to give up or to give in. So after 47 days, Japanese find him and they take him to prison, and then another phase of that starts with torturing and everything. And then he comes back, then that's when the movie starts. So I really wanted to share like what is his character and who he is, and how actually he has this willpower and the strength, but because he does not want to share, it just goes downhill. And as Ken was saying, he says all these nasty things about God, but then he is attracted to this lady who believes in God, and she says, actually, I pray unceasingly. I pray all the time. So he attracts this character in his life who believes in God, who prays all the time, even though he says that he has nothing to do with God, or he doesn't want to believe in him at all. So I was just thinking, sometimes we think that, oh, this is my reflection, or whatever he's going through, that guard, the bird that was torturing him. Of course, it was his reflection of his mind and his beliefs, but then this relationship coming into his life, who reflects this deep prayer and God and desire for healing and all of that, is just as much as strong a reflection for him as anything else, because it's like somewhere in his mind he does want this solution, but he doesn't know how to accept it. So basically, this is the whole thing. And actually, I felt to read because I think it's really, really helpful. The lesson 14th, God did not create a meaningless world. Because we in this movie we are dealing with so many concepts of war and disaster and this terrifying pain, hurt, and so many things. I think it's such a beautiful opportunity to look at everything that is on our mind, even right now, what is happening in the world. It's not really different. It's all the same, war and tragedy and all of that. So I wanted to read parts of this lesson and for us to have it in mind when we watch it, so that we don't necessarily get caught up in what is happening in form, but look at actually choose a perspective that we want to watch it with. So Jesus says, God did not create a meaningless world. The world you see has nothing to do with reality. It is of your own making, and it does not exist. With eyes closed, think of all the horrors in the world that cross your mind. Name each one as it occurs to you, and then deny its reality. God did not create it, and so it is not real. Say, for example, God did not create that war, and so it is not real. God did not create that airplane crash, and so it is not real. God did not create the disaster, and so it is not real. This is your personal repertory of horrors at which you are looking. These things are part of the world you see. Some of them are shared illusions, and others are part of your personal hell. It does not matter. What God did not create can only be in your own mind apart from His. Therefore, it has no meaning. In recognition of this fact, conclude the practice periods by repeating today's idea. God did not create a meaningless world. And everything that you will see in the movie, all the hallucinations and the reflections and the thoughts that he has, it's his chosen horrors. And every one of us have this kind of list of horrors that we are terrified and we don't want to look at and we are afraid of. So what you're gonna watch in the movie unfold is the horrors that the mind chose to face and to experience. It's not that something or someone is doing something to him. It's a choice in the mind. It's a decision. It's our own decision. Everything that is happening in your life, it's by your decision. The world you see is a vengeful world, and everything in it is a symbol of vengeance. Each of your perceptions of external reality is a pictorial representation of your own attack thoughts. One can well ask if this can be called sin. Is not fantasy a better word for such a process, and hallucination a more appropriate term for the result? So Jesus is not calling hallucination or fantasy like when like some kind of image is appearing out of nowhere in your mind. Actually, Jesus is calling hallucination all the perception. So we are not different from Louis. We are going through the same thing in our mind every time we are allowing the ego to speak to us and we listen to it and we give it the power. This is what we are accepting in our mind. And Louis' journey is somehow more intense, and it's actually a blessing because he cannot walk away from it. He cannot shy away from it because it's so on the surface. So everything that he's going through, we are going through in our mind, and the solutions that he's accepting, we are to accept in our mind. So it's not really about form things, but look at from the mind's perspective, and it will be really, really helpful for you. You will be able to see the miracle in it. So I think we can start.
Yeah. So I just had a little quote on this as he just shares about, God didn't save me. It was the atomic bombs that saved me. So I thought this is like the self-concept. This is Jesus's psychology for you. You see yourself as a ridiculous parody on God's creation. Weak, vicious, ugly and sinful, miserable and beset with pain. Such is your version of yourself. A self divided into many warring parts, separate from God and tenaciously held together by its erratic and capricious maker, to which you pray. It does not hear your prayers, for it is deaf. It does not see the oneness in you, for it is blind. It does not understand you are the Son of God, for it is senseless and understands nothing. So I think this sort of sums up his his concept right now that he's really pushing away, how he really, really feels and what's actually really, really happened. He doesn't really want to face it. And he actually wants to blame God for what happened. So yeah, we can
Yeah.
we can continue. Yep.
The ego has no power to distract you unless you give it the power to do so. The ego's voice is a hallucination. What if you recognized this world is an hallucination? What if you really understood you made it up? What if you realized that those who seem to walk about in it, to sin and die, attack and murder and destroy themselves, are wholly unreal? Could you have faith in what you see if you accepted this? And would you see it? Hallucinations serve to meet the goal of madness. They are the means by which the outside world, projected from within, adjusts to sin and seems to witness to its reality. It still is true that nothing is without, yet upon nothing are all projections made. For it is the projection that gives the nothing all the meaning that it holds. What has no meaning cannot be perceived, and meaning always looks within to find itself and then looks out. All the meaning that you give the world outside must thus reflect the sight you saw within, or better, if you saw it at all or merely judged against. So these images and hallucinations that he sees of the bird is really his own belief in sin and his own unresolved belief about God. So I just wanted to emphasize that. We can continue. Yeah, you can see this deep-seated belief about God that he has. And actually, Jesus says, actually, it's not that you were born and the things started happening to you. It's like the whole world, the whole perception, the whole idea that you are born as a human is the result of your belief in that belief about God. Really, the whole thing is a result. And he has this deep-seated belief, even from childhood, even before the war and everything happened. He had this deep-seated belief about God, that God was punishing him and God, something outside him was against him. And actually, whenever we feel like we are a victim of a situation or someone or something, that's the belief that is reflected, because that's the same belief that you are a victim of something outside forces, something outside yourself. And that is what is reflected. But there is another way of looking at it, and you will see that from the healing perspective, everything works together for good, but not in terms of the form outcomes, but for the healing and the forgiveness, everything works together for good. And you can see, like, he's almost like the door is shut for the work, for him to work. He cannot really find a job, and now he had this hope, oh, if not job, I can go into running. And he said when he runs, everything disappears, the voice, the hallucination of the ego disappears, everything gets quiet, and he's just present there. He's present to what is happening. But now, nope. Because, and you can see that how in those circumstances, how we are pushed to go deeper and higher. We are pushed to forgiveness, we are pushed to healing, we are pushed to true resolution. Because even if he continued running, that would be running away from facing what the conflict, inner conflict that he's going through, that he believes in, that he's holding on to. So in that sense, that nice outcome in form that would be considered as good for the healing, it would not be, it would actually be a delay for him. So now he's like pushed, don't work, he cannot really distract himself, no running what he loves, and he's like, what else do I have left. How else am I gonna deal with this? So he's so pushed to a true solution that he cannot see right now. And I had those experiences, I think, after I started the course and everything. I was like, oh, should I get a job? Nope. Should I do this? Nope. 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 And it's like we are like squeezed just because we are ready to find the real solution and real release that will release the whole perception of the world from our mind. So in this, as you watch and as things unfold, you can see that actually all things work together for good, and he has all the help. I like seeing their relationship because it feels like she's saying yes to forgiveness. And when they were sitting on the beach, she was saying like, he was saying like, I hope you're not a dream, because if I wake up and you're not there, I will be really disappointed. And you will see how things unfold, how important actually it's, how powerful her presence being in her life is for him. And she's like, oh, I'm waking you up, which is, she meant as a joke, but actually that's the truth, because she's gonna play the key role in his forgiveness. She has this huge part, and her support and her presence in his life is so important. And you can see how loved he is by his brother, by his family and everything. But as things get intense, he cannot really see that support, and he cannot find the air to breathe. But just because he has to come to this moment of like this pop in his mind when he's ready to release and let go. And of course, it's not really necessary for him to experience that intensity or to suffer or to pain. We don't actually need that for the solution, but sometimes it has to get to the point when we realize I cannot tolerate this anymore and I actually need help. We need to come to that point when we realize, okay, I'm actually powerless. And then there is space in our mind for that miracle to rush in and to receive that help. So now he's like, I don't know, in my mind it feels miraculous, because everything is always happening for awakening and for healing, and there is no other purpose. There is no other purpose, oh, things should turn out in form like this or like that, this relationship has to be like this. None of that has any value at all. The only thing is, does it support awakening or not? And everything is actually supporting awakening. It's like a guarantee, because it is already done. We are just reviewing the past. We are reviewing and reliving the past solution unfolding very, very slowly. But that's what we are watching right now. The only purpose of your life is awakening. And when you feel like something is going wrong, that just means that you are looking from your own plan, personal plan, and personal perspective. And we are making personal plans. We don't realize actually when we have our own plan of comfort and certain outcomes in form, we are actually protecting the ego, and we are actually turning away from awakening. We don't actually see our own plans. We see that, no, my plan is actually great. It's gonna make me happy. It's gonna make me comfortable. But we don't realize that actually it is reinforcing the ego. And that's what is happening with him. He's frustrated. It's not working out. Why is God doing this to me? And whenever we come to that point, we feel that pain, we feel that conflict, something unresolved, just because we're not looking at it from a higher perspective for the purpose that that the Holy Spirit is holding in our mind. So if you are looking from a tiny, small perspective, things feel like things are going wrong, but from a higher perspective, nothing is out of place, and our healing is actually guaranteed. It is our destiny to heal. But whether we experience pain and suffering and intensity depends on what we are aligning our mind with, whether we are aligning our mind with a personal plan, personal perspective, or we are aligning our mind with a higher plan, higher perspective, and the purpose that serves the whole. That's the only difference. With one, you experience peace, and with the other, you experience intensity and resistance, and you feel like something or someone is against you constantly. That's the difference. And now he's kind of coming to the point.
Yeah, that's good.
Okay, we can continue.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. How many of you recognize this? The ego comes in with one thought and another thought and another thought. And if you notice, there was one moment in the middle of this intensity when he ended up like he was on the boat or raft, and then he looked in the sky, and he said this phrase, "If you save me," and then he couldn't really finish it, and then the ego came in again. But there is this memory that you will see unfold in the memory that is actually his promise. That will be actually the key for his transformation, to remember that. But it comes on the surface, and then the ego comes up again and again and again. Yeah, and I just wanted to emphasize, like, we are going, this feels intense, but we are having our own hallucinations all the time. Like I was saying to Ken this morning, like there was something coming to my mind, like I was thinking about something with Ken, and without actually communicating, I was like, oh, he does not care. He doesn't want to talk about this. So I didn't talk about this for some time, and then I brought it up, and then he shared his thoughts, and I was like, oh my God, he does care. Like I was completely mistaken, but because I have those thoughts, I could see that I started seeing Ken in a certain way. And I was like, oh my God, it's all assumptions. We are constantly hallucinating because of those assumptions. I think that's why communication is really helpful with the ones that you can actually share your heart with, and share, actually, these are the thoughts I'm thinking. And then most of the time, we get this reflection that we are completely wrong. So basically, the ego is driving our mind with those assumptions all the time. The way you are perceiving others are not actually the way they are in reality. It's just some of your assumptions about them and about the situation, about you. Because Jesus says, your self-concept is a self-concept of the world. It's all the same. What you believe about the world is what you believe about yourself. So the thoughts that we have about others are the thoughts that we have about ourselves. And in that sense, it's so helpful to look at what we are thinking and what we are projecting out, to see, actually, oh, I have these like untrue thoughts about myself, and then we have the opportunity to release it. So it's not always, I think he's in a sense blessed, because he gets to the intensity, because he gets to look at the viciousness of the ego. But for us, it's so subtle, we don't even notice, and sometimes we buy into those assumptions and into those thoughts. Oh, this person is like this, or this person is like that. And we have to be in constant prayer to say to Jesus, I give this perception to you. Every day when you go to bed, I give this perception of everything to you, Jesus. Clean my mind. And when you wake up, I give all my perception of this, all thoughts over to you. Clean my mind. We have to be in prayer to have this, our mind so clean and pristine, because it's so subtle and quiet. Like we were discussing, it can be like, it's just a thought, it's no big deal. But then it adds up, and it creates this perception of the world and or of yourself, and we actually believe them, and we make them true. So that's, I think it's really helpful to, when you watch him go through this, it's actually him going through this intensity. And when he says, I want to go home, that's his true prayer, actually, underneath everything. And the ego is like, there is no home. In a sense, he's right, there is no home in this world. We have to go somewhere deeper, and somewhere completely beyond this world. So I think it's really helpful to have this in mind, because it's not that he's he's having these experiences because he went through through something in the past. It's actually the beliefs that are causing these experiences and these thoughts and these attacks. And in that sense, then our past has no causation at all. What happened in our past, what happened in terms of the form with people or situations and family or whatever it was, actually, it has no causation at all. The way you are, sometimes we have this victim story. I am like this because of my family, and I had that, so before I found the course, I had that so strongly about my family, and I'm like this, like actually playing out that victim story again and again, as what Ken was saying in the beginning during setup. But if you think about it, Your past, whatever others did to you, whatever you seem to did to others, it doesn't matter what you said, what you did, what you thought. Actually, it has no causation because there is a deeper cause underneath. And whatever happens, these hallucinations are just distractions to find the true solution. And that's what Louis is going through, actually. So don't buy into his lie, into his hallucinations, and into his drama. Let's focus on the true solution and true problem. Is that good? Okay, let's continue. Okay. Yeah, you can see that he heard that the guard who was the evil in the prison, he heard that he was not captured. He managed to get away. So now he's obsessed with this idea that he needs to go back, find the bird, and kill him, basically. That's what he's going through. And I was thinking, like, that's how obsessed we are with the ego. Like, when we go in this loop of thoughts that it is constantly telling us all the time. And I have this quote from Jesus, and the first line is actually quite profound. And I think the whole thing describes what he's going through. Forgiveness is a selective remembering based not on your selection. So this is amazing. Forgiveness is a selective remembering based not on your selection. For the shadow figures you would make immortal are enemies of reality. Be willing to forgive the Son of God for what he did not do. The shadow figures are the witnesses you bring with you to demonstrate he did what he did not. Because you bring them, you will hear them. And you who keep them by your own selection do not understand how they came into your mind and what their purpose is. They represent the evil that you think was done to you. You bring them with you only that you may return evil for evil, hoping that their witness will enable you to think guiltily of another and not harm yourself. They speak so clearly for the separation that no one, not obsessed with keeping separation, could hear them. They offer you the reasons why you should enter into unholy alliances to support the ego's goals and make your relationships the witness to its power. So Jesus is saying you are Louis is seeing all the hallucinations because he is obsessed with keeping separation. That's why he hears these voices. That's why he sees these things. That's why he receives the messages that he wants to receive. It's not that bird is haunting him. It's actually he is using the image of the bird to project out the guilt and the pain and this belief in sin outward. And he thinks that when he does this, he will not be hurt. He will be safe. That's what we think all the time when we blame. We think that if we blame, they are going to be in pain, but not us. We're going to save ourselves. We're going to protect ourselves. But that's not actually how it works. And he's in this loop of thoughts. He's obsessed with this thinking until it becomes so painful that we want, like, okay, I want to drop this. This is not the way. I cannot do this anymore. And it's the same with Cynthia, because she is trying to bring in her perspective. What about me, and what about this, and what about that? But she is caught up in a victim story too. Like, what about me? You don't think about me, instead of being really, really present and, okay, Jesus, what is, okay, guide me, lead me, what do I do? What do I do right now? But she's thinking, actually, you're not acting the way a husband should be acting. I have a child. I need to take care of it. You're not helping. This is intense. I need to run. I need to get away because you're not thinking about me. That's her train of thoughts. But actually, Jesus will intervene to bring the message to her, even, which is helpful for the whole situations, because it's not about raising a child or having a nice marriage and her being disappointed and not having your expectations met. It's actually about the healing, as we said before, and they came together for that healing. And you could see when he was looking, she was saying, I cannot do this anymore. And he was like, there was this moment of vulnerability in his eyes, and he was like, what does it mean? What are you saying by that? What is it? And she was like, I want a divorce. And then flashback, when they were sitting on the beach, he said, if I wake up and you're not there, that will be really, really hurtful for me. So that is like the last point of, oh my God, for him. Like, yeah, like this big pain. But they have to come to this point of realizing that actually both of their lives are for God. Their relationship has to serve the purpose of God. It's not about keeping something in form and having something a certain way. And of course, getting away and running away is a great solution of the ego. I recognize that for myself sometimes when things would get intense. The first solution the ego gives you, just get away, just leave, just leave. And that's gonna be that's gonna resolve everything. But it's not really. No matter whether it is you who is going through the thing or you are perceiving someone, it's your thing. It's your lesson, it's your healing. So in a sense, you cannot really get away, even if you get away with in physically. So in my experience, once I said, actually, no, I received the guidance to be here, and I have not received the guidance to leave, so I have to stay. And then actually that stabilized my mind, and that gave me this sense of commitment. And the sense of commitment is all about being in a state of mind to give your all, not to have these back doors open. I'm going to run away as soon as it gets uncomfortable, as soon as I don't like it or it becomes boring or whatever it is. No, I'm making commitment to healing and to forgiveness, to give my all, whether this relationship is going to last forever or for a lifetime or not. This is the moment. The commitment is really about this moment and about fulfilling God's function, the role that we have to fulfill in the plan of awakening, and nothing else. It's not really about the outcome being in a relationship or not, but it's about the guidance. Is there a part to play for me in this or not? That's really what it's really about. So we can see how it goes for them. So yeah, she was touched on Billy Graham's revival, tent revival. She was touched and felt guided to actually, it's not for me to leave him and get a divorce. It's actually for me to stay. And I had this, yeah, something touches me about it, because we've seen that, like in the elevator, he went through this another big thing with the ego, and after that, something happened probably in his mind. He made the decision somewhere in his mind to accept help in some way, because then he receives this reflection from her saying, actually, I love you. I'm not gonna divorce you. So somewhere in his mind there was a turning point. And these are two paragraphs from Healed Relationship, which I think many of us are familiar with. I think every time we are going through something in relationship, everyone is turning to this section. And this is, I think, the phase that she's at right now. That was like a that decision to stay was, for her, it was like faith-based, because she doesn't even know what's going to happen to him. She doesn't know how it's going to unfold, and that decision was made by faith. Jesus says, this is a time for faith. You let Holy Spirit's goal be set for you. That was an act of faith. Do not abandon faith now that the rewards of faith are being introduced. If you believed the Holy Spirit was there to accept the relationship, why would you now not still believe that He is there to purify what He has taken under His guidance? Have faith in your brother in what seems to be a trying time. The goal is set, and your relationship has sanity as its purpose, for now you find yourself in an insane relationship recognized as such in the light of its goal. Now the ego says thus, substitute for this another relationship to which your former goal was quite appropriate. You can escape from your distress only by getting rid of your brother. You need not part entirely if you choose not to do so, but you must exclude major areas of fantasy from your brother to save your sanity. This is what the ego says, basically. Get rid of your brother. And Jesus says, hear not this now. Have faith in him who answered you. He heard. Has he not been very explicit in his answer? You are not now wholly insane. Can you deny that he has given you a most explicit statement? Now he asks for faith a little longer, even in bewilderment. For this will go, and you will see the justification for your faith emerge to bring you shining conviction. Abandon him not now, nor your brother. This relationship has been reborn as holy. And that is Jesus' presence, like, please follow my guidance, and you will see the justification for your faith emerge to bring you shining conviction. And this is actually what she's asked to do, and she's actually doing. So we can continue. Hallucinations disappear when they are recognized for what they are. This is the healing and the remedy. Believe them not, and they are gone. And all you need to do is recognize that you did this. Once you accept this simple fact and take unto yourself the power you gave them, you are released from them. One thing is sure, hallucinations serve a purpose, and when that purpose is no longer held, they disappear. Therefore, the question never is whether you want them, but always, do you want the purpose that they serve? This world seems to hold out many purposes, each different and with different values, yet they are all the same. Again, there is no order, only a seeming hierarchy of values. Vision is the means by which the Holy Spirit translates your nightmares into happy dreams, your wild hallucinations that show you all the fearful outcomes of imagined sin into the calm and reassuring sights with which He would replace them. These gentle sights and sounds are looked on happily and heard with joy. They are His substitute for all the terrifying sights and screaming sounds the ego's purpose brought to your horrified awareness. They step away from sin, reminding you that it is not reality which frightens you, and that the errors which you made can be corrected.
A miracle has lightened up all dark and ancient caverns, where the rites of death echoed since time began. For time has lost its hold upon the world. The Son of God has come in glory to redeem the lost, to save the helpless, and to give the world the gift of his forgiveness. Who could see the world as dark and sinful when God's Son has come again at last to set it free? You who perceive yourself as weak and frail, with futile hopes and devastating dreams, born but to die, to weep and suffer pain, hear this. All power is given unto you in earth and heaven. There is nothing you cannot do. You play the game of death, of being helpless, pitiful, tied to disillusion in a world which shows no mercy to you. Yet when you accord it mercy, will its mercy shine on you? Then let the Son of God awaken from his sleep and opening his holy eyes, return again to bless the world he made. In error it began, but it will end in the reflection of his holiness. And he will sleep no more and dream of death. Then join me today. Your glory is the light that saves the world. Do not withhold salvation longer. Look about the world and see the suffering there. Is not your heart willing to bring your weary brothers rest? They must await your own release. They stay in chains till you are free. They cannot see the mercy of the world until you find it in yourself. They suffer pain until you have denied its hold on you. They die till you accept your eternal life. You are the Holy Son of God Himself. Remember this, and all the world is free. Remember this, and earth and heaven are one.
Oh, that moment touches me so much. Like, can you imagine all the characters that ever made you angry or whatever in one room, and you go one by one to everyone and saying, "It's okay, it's over, I forgive you." And then everyone turns towards him because I feel like everyone wants to receive that blessing from you, you know. Everyone is, no matter what they are saying or doing, everyone is waiting for that blessing and wants to receive you, and they are attracted to that blessing. And I just love that scene. Like, he's just surrounded with these people who are eager to receive that blessing and to be released, to be recognized for who they really are. So that really touches my heart. Well, I actually love, like, when he was talking and saying, like, he knew that he forgave everyone, he forgave the bird, but it was not like he trying to forgive. It was just given to him. It's just grace to receive that. And he opened up. He remembered his promise because when he was on the raft, he promised God, "If you save me, I will serve you forever." And he forgot about it. And once he remembered, he realized all the things that he thought God was doing against him. He realized, oh my God, God was actually there to see God where you have not seen him before. Like, and I have this quote when Jesus says, "The miracle is a sign that the mind has chosen to be led by me in Christ's service." And that's what he experienced. He remembered his promise to serve the Christ. And Jesus says actually about our promise to God. And I think that promise to be in service while we are here, we seem to be here, is the reflection of this promise to God in creation. Jesus says, "In his creation did his Father say, 'You are beloved of me, and I of you forever. Be you perfect as myself, for you can never be apart from me.' His Son remembers not that he replied, 'I will,' though in that promise he was born. Yet God reminds him of it every time he does not share a promise to be sick, but lets his mind be healed and unified. His secret vows are powerless before the will of God, whose promises he shares. And what he substitutes is not his will, who has made promise of himself to God." That's our promise actually we made. God told us, God told you, "You are beloved of me, and I of you forever. Be you perfect as myself, for you can never be apart from me. And you said, I will. And every time we have openness in our mind, God reminds us of that promise, and the miracle happens when we choose to remember, to acknowledge that grace, to receive it, to accept the forgiveness. It's not really trying and achieving, but in that promise that we made to God to be the way He created us, it's there. Everything is there. All the healing is there. So, yeah, that's how powerful the miracle is and how powerful our mind is and our choice, our decision is. It's just we watched this movie, we watched this Louis going through such intensity in his mind, all kinds of hallucinations, all kinds of ego backlashes, and then it just everything just disappears in one instant, in one moment. That's the power of God and power of our mind. As you were saying, Jesus is saying, I'm ready now. Can we do it? Should we do it? I'm ready now. You don't have to concern yourself about readiness. I'm ready now. Embrace that grace, His grace fully. Do you have anything on your mind?
Said it all, didn't it? Oh, thank you, everyone. What a lovely ending in true forgiveness.
All the resistance, all this time was resisting and resist. No, 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 no. And then finally, and that's what we are doing like all the time. We're saying, no, 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 I don't want it, I don't want it. Finally, it comes. And I hope that you feel the grace. You feel as blessed and even more as I feel right now. Resistance is futile. Oh. Love you. Have a blessed day, evening, night. Many miracles. And may this movie continue working in your mind. And may you experience power of grace and power of miracle. Power of who you really are. Love you.